our new mayor, Joe Buck. And I don't know if Joe really even needs an introduction, but he sent me this great stuff. So here we go. He's local, he's native. He was born right here in Lake Oswego, and his grandparents are the ones who started Gubank's restaurant back in the 70s. And his father, Michael Buck, took it over and continued to own and operate Gubank's. And now, where Joe began working as a teen, or actually as 12. And then Joe went on and was in the Coast Guard for a while, and then graduated from the University of Portland with a degree in business administration, and did accounting for a few years before returning to Gubank's as a full-time employee, or owner, running the organization. Then in 2012, Joe founded Baba Kahen, which, as you know, is a favorite place for breakfast and lunch here in Lake Oswego. And then this year, during the pandemic, he opened the Lola's Cafe Bar in downtown Lake Oswego. So he mentioned that, as for many small businesses across the country, the pandemic was a challenge and required some tough decisions. Baba Kahen had a sister restaurant in Dundee that's been closed, we hope maybe temporarily, but it requires a lot of teamwork, flexibility, and coming up with new strategies to combat that and to just survive during this challenging, transformative times. So his family has a background of community service with over 4 decades of service, and Joe believes that that's a big responsibility. And he previously served on the city council from 2014 to 2018, and serves on numerous boards. He serves with me on the Hunger Fighters, as well as the Willamette Falls Trust, LO for Love, Metro Solid Waste Advisory Board, as well as the Lake Grove Business Association. So he's doing a lot of community work as well. But so he's as a lifetime resident of Lake Oswego, Joe cares deeply about our community. And you may have seen him running along the streets of Lake Oswego because he's a fitness enthusiast, along with his 2 dogs. So with no more ado, I'm going to turn this over to Joe, our new mayor, to tell us a little bit about sustainability and his vision for our community.
Thanks, Dora. I appreciate it. Hi, everyone. It's great to be here tonight with all of you. Before I begin, I'd just like to recognize my friend and our District 2 Metro Councilor, Christine Lewis, who's here tonight. It's great to see you, Christine. And I also see our school board member, Neelam Gupta. Good to see you, Neelam. Of course, Chair Pocklington spoke earlier. And our city councilor, Rachel Verdick, really wanted to be here tonight. She had an emergency come up right beforehand. And all of my other colleagues on the city council better be doing their goals homework for next week, I hope. I'd also like to acknowledge the critical role that the staff at the city plays in all of the work that we do around sustainability. Notably, our sustainability analyst, Jenny Slepian, who also had a conflict tonight, but does just a mountain, of work on our behalf. And then also like to recognize Alex Mem with Clackamas County. It's great to see him here tonight. And he has been a huge sustainability resource for our community in many ways. So I was doing I came to find out from someone at the city that we have this nifty tool, and some of you may know about this, but on over the past handful of years, the city digitized all of its archives. So what used to be, I imagine, stacked in bankers' boxes, all around the corners of City Hall, they made this huge effort to scan everything into a system, and now it's all stored in this online archive, which is accessible from the homepage of the city website. And it's very interesting. I mean, of course, there's lots of very, very boring information there, but there's also a lot of really good historic data going all the way back to the founding of Lake Oswego, and you can really get quite lost in that at night. So as we've been preparing, to set our goals for the years ahead, I've been taking time going back and looking at kind of how the goals have tracked over the past, a couple of decades. When in looking at that and then preparing to speak to all of you tonight, I thought, well, what has kind of been the pathway that sustainability in Lake Oswego has taken over the past 20 years, or so, and I know there's many people on this call here in this meeting, this gathering tonight, who have been involved all of those 20 years, and bless all of you for that. And so the sustainability has been a big part of Lake Oswego for a very long time. And in 2002, so going back quite a little bit of ways, 2002 is when sustainability started showing up in city council goals, for the first time. And it was, the last goal. It was at the bottom. And it was focused on things like, light pollution. Somehow that was a sustainability goal. And other things like this, a Green Street program. And then for years after that, they're still talking about the green. We need to look into that Green Street program. And the light pollution, And in 2007, one of my favorite qualifiers of sustainability goals was, again, it was at the bottom. And it was, well, as time permits, we'll look in all the other goals we're going to do, but as for sustainability, it was as time permits. Well, someone must have, given the city a little bit of a push, because then in 2008, the Sustainability Advisory Board was created. And of course, that, board exists to this day. And I know many of its members are here tonight, and they have done really great work. So it has been a bit of a roller coaster for sustainability. Because after 2008, there's times when sustainability completely disappears, off the city radar. But nevertheless, we've made some really good progress. First of all, we have a sustainability analyst coordinator, and we've done concrete things like purchased clean wind power, commercial composting, residential composting, green building standards, plastic bag ordinance. And there's always been lots of really great care for the natural environment here in Lake Oswego, kind of going back to beyond the sustainability, the kind of the energy type sustainability goals we think of, but a real stewardship towards the natural environment is a big part of the Lake Oswego culture, and has been for a very long time. And we see that manifested to this day through all of the friends groups like Oswego, like Watershed Council, and others who really give a lot of attention to trees and habitat in our shared spaces, which are really in dire need of maintenance. And then, of course, this last year, as has been mentioned, we passed the Climate Action Plan, which is great. So kind of the culmination of decades of work. Advocating for the environment is, really advocating for the future, and it is really advocating for those without a voice. Both the environment itself and also for all of those who will come after us. It is ongoing work, and as we look to the future of that work here in Lake Oswego, I just want to frame a couple of things as we continue to talk about sustainability in Lake Oswego. The first is the importance of creating a city culture around sustainability. And we do that by involving people, really all of you, the residents and our partners in Lake Oswego. We want to ensure that we are moving forward regardless of who we elect as mayor, who we put on the council, who the city manager is, or who other decision makers are. Right? We want sustainability to be an ingrained part of our life, so that when people move here, they know they're moving to a community that values making progressive choices that are leading to a better tomorrow, and they're constantly exposed to education and support to make that possible. They'll see a commitment to climate at every turn, right? From how we get around town, to how homes are designed and powered, to how children get to school, to how the trash is collected, and to how we use our natural resources like water. The Lake Oswego of the near future will be inescapably dedicated to the individual and collective actions that we need to chart a different course for the future. So, how do we create this culture? Well, the sustainability plan implementation will be one that focuses at the household level, right? Our ability to work with one another, to share best practices, And to inspire each other and to gather is not only our secret weapon, really, here at home, but it's also action that brings us together to learn about sustainability and also about one another. And through that, we create more empathy and compassion, which strengthens the social fabric that ties us together. When we created the climate action plan, we were focusing on the large entities in town, right? So the city as one entity, the school district as another, and then of course the largest entity of all, which is the collection of all of us as the residents. And so what the city and the school district can do is great because they lead by example. So a lot of the actions that the city and the school district take really set us on a good path, and they set that example. But even if the city and the school district did every single action in the climate plan, overall in the city, it's just a tiny impact on the overall environment. Of course, Lake Oswego as a whole is just a tiny impact. But where the real benefit comes is from everyone at the individual level in their households having the tools, the tools that the city can provide through policy and action, that the city can provide through convening forums and facilitating the education needed really to reach folks. I think there's a lot of folks in town who want to make a big difference and who just don't know where to start, right? Climate is a big thing. It can seem insurmountable, and it's tough because individually, like I said about the city, and the school district, we're all making individually what seems like an insignificant impact, but that's not true. I mean, because we have to act individually to come together collectively, and it's that collective power that really is making is going to make a huge difference. The second thing is that simultaneously, as we go through this climate action plan, implementation, is we really need to evaluate our climate action plan through an equity lens. We're anxious, right, to put this plan that has been so many years in the works and is a culmination of decades of community priorities. And it's important that the plan and its implementation ensure that it's a plan that elicits, enables, and affords participation to each and every member of our community, regardless of their knowledge about sustainability, the type of housing they live in, whether they own a home, rent, live in an apartment, condominium, single family home, a duplex, regardless of their income level, their family size, their age. We need to reach out to the voices we do not hear from enough, or the voices we don't hear from at all. For these are the voices of the folks who are going to be most heavily impacted by climate. It's a great time right now to pivot our sustainability program to one that recognizes the emergency and urgency of the work and the important role equity plays in the topic and the comprehensive benefits of sustainability to people in the town who rely on our government decisions the most. Today's decisions are also our youth's future. So it's critical that we heavily involve our youth as well. And I'm heartened tonight to see several of our youth leaders in sustainability attending. Also can really appreciate their continued involvement in the climate work. I know they're both doing at the city level and in schools, and the advocacy they all provide that goes beyond our borders. And the last point I'd like to touch on is the common thread between diversity, equity, and inclusion goals and our sustainability goals. And we need to ensure that those two goals are working in concert with one another. Issues of equity have been overrun by environmental issues at various points. The goals are all important and worthwhile, and there are great examples of harmony between land use, transportation, the environment, and inclusive communities. And our community is going to be moving in that direction, along with many other communities throughout Oregon as we implement the legislation, House Bill 2001 and 2003. And it's important that we recognize the intersectionality between these community goals. As we become a community that opens its doors and allows more to share in our beautiful city and allows a wider variety of folks of varying income levels, backgrounds, and all the many characteristics that make us all unique and special, not only will that strengthen our social fabric, making our community more resilient, more inclusive, and equitable, but it will also lead to the environmental results that we all need to achieve. And the best part about this notion of opening our doors, that willingness to welcome everyone and change our way of thinking about things, is absolutely free. It requires nothing of us other than our willingness to put our best selves forward and open our arms. And from that, so many great things will manifest. I just want to thank Willie and Ami, Kim, Chair Pockmanton, Jack, Christina, Kathleen, Pastor Michelle. I want to thank you all for your presentations and your work in the community. Everything that your organizations do for Lake Oswego. I say it like all the time, but it really cannot be said enough. And that is that the dedication you all show and the work you put in really does make a big difference. And the same goes for everyone here tonight. I mean, the group here tonight, you really are the dedicated few. And I know so many of us, we all know each other. We serve in the same organizations and have done so much work together. Our challenge together is to bring along the thousands and thousands of other people in this town in whatever capacity they can participate in. And working together, I hope that we can ensure that 20, 30 years from now, when there's another group just like this, maybe it's in this format or in person or whatnot, and they're having a Lake Oswego Sustainability Network gathering, and they're looking back to what these folks in 2021 were doing, that they're not shaking their heads and thinking, oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe what these were up to back then. And that's not going to happen because of all of you, all of your dedication and everyone working together. And one of my goals as mayor is to better connect the ins and outs of city government with all of you. And admittedly, a lot of the work we do at the council level is incredibly boring, but all of it really does have an impact in your lives, and it can be difficult to digest. The city sends out these huge emails with links to packets of information that are often hundreds of pages long, and people think, well, that's it right there. So I'm really working to provide information to everyone in the city that's more digestible, so that people do have an understanding, even if it's just a quick something that you can read and know what happened at our city council meetings in plain English, what resources are available, and how things that we're doing at the city are impacting your lives. That's something I want to do. So I invite all of you to please follow me on social media, connect with me via email. It will be a big part of the work we're doing these next years, and we're hoping to do lots of work that really does involve many more members of the community. And we're need all your help to do that. So thank you to the Sustainability Network for putting this forum together. I know it's a lot of work, and I appreciate all of you, and to all of you on the call who have also submitted ideas for the council goals, your feedback. We received our first kind of packet of feedback, and it's immense. So I was so glad to see that. I saw the size of the file and I thought, oh, this is great. So many people have contributed information to our council goals, which is fantastic. And if you haven't and you want to provide feedback, ideas, anything you'd like that would contribute to the council putting its goals together, which is taking place not this weekend, but the next, you have until tomorrow. And there's a portal right there on the city council website. And there's also a link on my Instagram page there. So that's all I have. And thank you all very much. It's just an honor to be here, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. It's so exciting having you in the mayoral leadership position to lead sustainability here. We have a few minutes for questions. If anyone has a burning question for Joe. Unmute yourself. And
I have a question. I'm in Waluga neighborhood, and we have concerns that the DRC is not particularly focused on environmental impacts of the decisions they're making. And that's something I'd like to be able to explore further, either with you or the council members, or however would be best to approach it without stepping on too many toes.
Well, Carol, why don't you why don't you send me an email about the concerns that you see, and we will address them with you.
Okay.
Good.
Anyone else have a question for Joe? Well, as you were talking, Joe, one thing that I was thinking about was how you said, sometimes city government's a little opaque and it's hard to get participation. I have to say that 2020, one of those transformative things for me was it's so easy to attend meetings. You just log on to Zoom and you can listen and find out what's going on, the school board, the city council. So that might be something to keep in the bag of tricks for keeping community involvement higher.
Hey, Dorothy.
Yeah.
Just as another idea for folks, if you do have a question for the mayor, throw it in chat, and maybe he can tackle it after our next round of breakout rooms.
Well, thank you, Mike. That's a great idea. And Dorothy, that's a great point. One of the nice benefits of our new city hall, which I'm sure if you have all been downtown, you've seen that being constructed there on A Avenue, is that we will have the ability for the first time to have combination, real in-person and virtual meetings. So the ability of folks to participate, via to an in-person meeting, virtually to present, because that it's a huge barrier that we recognize to participation. I think especially to the really, as I mentioned, heavily involved group on this call who have undoubtedly attended many council meetings and sat there and waited and waited and waited and waited until your agenda item comes up and you can give the comments. And I see Duke Castle laughing his head off because he knows it's true. And then, there's the nights where like, oh, we ran out of time after you've been there for 5 hours. So I think it has been great, the participation that we've seen, and folks able to, chime in to different advisory board meetings too, which have never been attended, by the public, but yet are very interesting. And there's lots of great decisions, and these are, neighbors and with other neighbors sitting together and doing great work. And so that's great.
Kathleen just put a question in here about, are there additional resources, or what additional resources might be added at the city level to help with the implementation of the climate action plan? We know that, if you don't have anybody, it's great to have a plan, but if you have no one to work on it, not a whole lot's going to get done.
That's right.
Any thoughts on that?
Yes, well, this is this is what council goals, are so important, because what council goals will do is inform the staff where and our city manager Martha Bennett where she needs to allocate resources to make those goals happen. So I have that we haven't obviously put the goals together yet, but it is certainly my priority, and I know we just came off of the campaign cycle and having close relationships with the other counselors. I sense that this is going to be a top, if not the top, priority for the city, at least one of the top priorities. And so the city will put the needed resources behind it. And that's what it's needed. As I mentioned before, for so many years, even when sustainability was a goal, it was the bottom goal, it was the, well, if we can, if, it was the leftover, and it's going to be the main course. So.